Joe Burrow has been a large talk of discussion when it comes to football fans ever since that playoff run that the Bengals have been on. A lot of positive, some negative, and a lot of people are asking, is Joe Burrow the guy, right? When we do these mock drafts of imagine if you could pick one guy to start your team around, Joe Burrow's in that conversation now. What are they about to say about it? But I want to bring in somebody to add some input into that conversation. I feel like we'll know a little bit about the Bengals. Boy, Ace Boogie. Ace, how are you doing, man?
Pretty good, bro. Pretty good. Glad to be on again. Always a pleasure to jump on, bro, for sure.
I wanted to spin it to something else here, which will sort of take us where we were looking to go. And that is Dan Orlovsky on Tuesday tweeting out, what are you calling him now, Dan Orlistsky?
Orlistsky.
He likes putting out these lists. And he put out a list of his top 5 quarterbacks, 25 or younger. He had Burrow 1, Lamar Jackson 2, Herbert 3, Trevor Lawrence 4, Mac Jones 5.
That's interesting. If he is 25 years or younger, that's very interesting. Mac Jones, though, I don't know about that one. Mac Jones, yeah, I'm not so. Okay, so Josh Allen is 26. That's why he's not on the list. That I assume makes it a little less controversial. Obviously, I guess Pat Mahomes is 26 as well. So now that I'm looking at the list, I still don't know if I got Mac Jones there, dog. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know if I can. Like, I like Mac Jones, but he has a lot helping him in his situation, in my opinion. You talk about Bill Belichick. You talk about, I think there was actually a metric created just for that, like offensive line, coaching, and all of that. Who's the most helped? He was pretty high on the list. I just don't know if I'm definitively sold on this guy being a top 5 quarterback, 25 or younger, but this guy was in a game where he literally handed the ball off like 90% of that game. I don't know if I'm ready to put him in top 5.
All I'll say is that Lamar Jackson is the oldest 25-year-old quarterback in NFL history. Like he's been in the league 4 years. He's still under 25. And he won the Heisman in college. It's not like he didn't have a notable career in college like Josh Allen, where it's like he might have did too. He did 3 full at Louisville, and he's still under. And people still talk about him like he ain't. That's just crazy to me. But all right, let's let Dan continue on.
And so the assignment here for each of you guys was tell us who you would have picked out of all these quarterbacks if you could choose one of them to start a franchise with. But I'll tell you in advance, everybody said Joe Burrow, which I find fascinating. So, Cindy, you can put him up there. Burrow. I found that fascinating. Let's start with your guy, Rob Ninkovich. You were the one who never stopped raving about Lamar Jackson on the show. At one point, you thought he was just as good as Patrick Mahomes. So why are you starting a franchise? Yeah, Greeny says you're all wrong. Why are you starting a... And again, I don't want this to look like I'm down on Joe Burrow. He just took them to the freaking Super Bowl for crying out loud.
They do you, though.
But what happened to your Lamar Jackson love? What happened, Ninko?
Listen, I love Lamar. I love him to death. But listen, I'm thinking longevity here. I'm thinking franchise. If you're going to start a franchise, you don't want 3, 4 years. You want 10, 15 years. And now with the style of play and how they're protecting quarterbacks, Joe Burrow could play a long time. And yes, I know he had a freak knee injury, but think about where he's at now. Gets the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl. I love Lamar, but Lamar takes...
One question I got to ask you, Ace, because I hear this a lot about the longevity and the style of play.
Right.
Do you really think there's that big of a difference between how often Joe Burrow gets hit given his style of play of extending plays and like living outside the pocket versus Lamar Jackson, who does take a lot of dedicated runs, but it's not like he takes a ton of hits. So I hear this argument all the time with Lamar Jackson that he takes too many hits, that he's not going to be able to survive in the NFL, but it's like, you look at somebody like Joe, or even let's take Joe Burrow out of it, right? Ben Roethlisberger had a very similar style, right? Where he would scramble outside the pocket. Now, Joe Burrow's much more athletic than Ben is. But Ben would take a ton of hits. And we saw what that did to him towards the end of his career where, you know, he was somebody who had a 15-year career, but really like a 10-year career, right? Because after about, like he had those 2 years where he kind of stunk his first couple years where he was carried by a good roster. Steeler fans come at me. And then he had like 10 good years, and then he got injured at the end of his career and never was the same past, 2016, 2017, once all the triple Bs got off the team. So, nobody ever talked about Ben's longevity when he gets hit a lot. We don't talk about the quarterbacks that get hit in the pocket or hit or sacked a lot in terms of their longevity. But when it comes to Lamar, we talk about it all the time. And I wonder, do you have the same concerns when it comes to Joe Burrow, like the longevity there? Do you think it's a guaranteed 15, 20 just because people see him, they see they deem him as a pocket passer, even though Joe's not really that. He's more of a athletic guy and a scrambler. He's good in the pocket. Not saying he's not, but he takes more hits than what people think.
So it's funny because I've actually defended Lamar in that conversation where a lot of people talk about, oh, he's going to take so many hits and it's going to break his body down. And I think a lot of that comes from people that watch Michael Vick, people that watch Cam Newton. And you hit the nail on the head. Like, Lamar is smart enough to where he doesn't get hit like that. I remember yelling at people that were saying that, like, Lamar's first 2 years in the league, I'm like, he doesn't take hits like that. He's smart enough to make sure that he evades those hits. Now, when we talk about Cam Newton was not shying away from any contact, right? And it kind of, in a sense, broke his body down. And then it made it even worse when I was defending Lamar Jackson, that at the time, Michael Vick was an analyst, and he told him that he wouldn't last if he continued to take hits and stuff like that. Me personally, I don't think Lamar Jackson is a guy that takes too many hits. Now, you have guys out there like RG3 where there may be some similar play calls, but I don't think Lamar is taking that much damage. When it comes to Joe Burrow, he is a guy that will try to hold on to the ball and make the extra play, and sometimes that comes to the detriment of being hit. But I would probably say it was more so due to the quality of the offensive line that he played around, where he was getting hit so much, because at times it was frustrating. I mean, when we saw the Super Bowl, that was like an average game for me, like watching it. Like, anytime that there would be something that could happen, Joe's got two guys in his lap. So I do think that he does cause some of those sacks, but for the most part, he's not a guy that is just willing to wild out and just take any kind of hit. I think he's smart in that retrospect. But at the same token, I don't think that it's going to really contribute to whether each two of those players are going to have a longer career. And I think that narrative, like I said previously, was formed based off of guys like Cam Newton, Mike Vick, and guys like that. But to me, I guess the thing is they have to see a guy like Lamar do it for 15 years before they change that narrative. It's just like the guys that we're talking about, the quarterbacks under 6'5". If you can't, if you're 6 foot or something, you can't be a good quarterback in this league until someone shows it. So I don't think Lamar is going to have that issue. I think that he also suffered from the issue of a bad offensive line last year, rather than it being him, getting hurt just for, reckless play. I don't think he's a reckless player at all. So to me, I don't like that argument at all. And so for me, I don't think that that's going to cause Lamar Jackson to have a shorter career. And as you just brought up yourself, Lamar Jackson's the same age as Joe Burrow and has been playing in the league for a while. And that's one of, I think, the caveats and one of the, I think, positives to having him on your team.
I just know when Lamar went out with that ankle injury, it was a bunch of people that was waiting 3 years to be like, see, he's going to get injured all the time. I'm like, bro, he got injured once.
A lot of hits. We know his style of play. He's going to run the football. He's going to take unnecessary contact. So Joe Burrow, in my eyes, is your prototypical pocket-style quarterback who's going to limit the type of hits. Hopefully his offensive line does that this year. But I really think Joe Burrow's the guy for longevity
do that the last
purposes.
2 years.
Okay, fair enough. Limit the hits. He got sacked 62,000 times last year, but that's the thing, right? Go ahead, Graziano.
That's the thing. I mean, you can love more than one player. I'm a huge.
This is one of those things, right, where I feel like people just put archetypes out there, and then instead of like creating the archetype around the player, they just go and say, here's this archetype, we're going to match it to this player, and they don't really, it's like with the Joe Burrow comps coming out of college. I was always like he reminds me more of a Deshaun Watson coming out of college than he reminded me of the comps he was getting, like Tom Brady and stuff like that, right? And I was like, no, he's more of a Watson. Like, he's a winner, baller in crunch time, can move around a little bit, doesn't have the best arm strength, but he makes up for it with his intelligence and his zip and accuracy that he can put on the ball. But people they put themselves like, oh, Joe Burrow, and we all know what factored into why he thought that Joe Burrow was just this pocket passer wizard. You know, that he described Joe Burrow like he was Joe Flacco, right? Where he just gets rid of the ball before anything happens to him or something like that. That's just, right. We have these archetypes in our head about these players, and they won't mold them for the player. They will always mold the player to the archetype, which is always just hilarious to see.
Lamar Jackson fan, but you have to make a pick here. I took Burrow. We've seen Burrow overcome adversity and win. We've seen a guy get sacked 9 times in a playoff game and still win the game. Like, that's something as great as Lamar Jackson is, we haven't seen it, right? I mean, they have not had that kind of playoff success. They haven't had that kind of success when things have gone wrong. So looking for a tiebreaker, if I have to pick between Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, I'm fine having the number 2 pick in that particular draft. But if I have the number 1 pick, this would be the guy I'd go.
Yeah, to echo Dan's sentiments, Joe Burrow's had to overcome a lot, and the Cincinnati Bengals might be chief among them. You're talking about a franchise that hadn't won a playoff game, Greeny, in over 30 years.
Yeah.
And in his second full year as a starter, his first full season, because his rookie year was cut short, he took him to the Super Bowl. So that, to me, is the most impressive part about it. The Bengals needed an agent for change, and Joe Burrow has got that thing turned around in short order. And beyond that, Greeny, there's just that belief that this team can compete at a high level because they have Joe Burrow under center. Going into Arrowhead Stadium and winning in the playoffs on your way to the Super Bowl, that speaks volumes about the confidence that he has his teammates playing with, and that's why I give him the edge over all of those other young quarterbacks.
Fair enough. And look, I want to make it very clear. I think Burrow is spectacular. I think Lamar Jackson is spectacular. But my choice would be Justin Herbert, and I'll give you 2 reasons why. One, he plays 17 road games a year.
What do you think about that? Because that's a debate that I thought Joe Burrow honestly grew out of last season, right? It was kind of like the Clippers and the Warriors, right? Remember when the Clippers and the Warriors used to have that beef and like, oh, which is going to be the next team? And then the Warriors went to the 2015 finals and then it was over, right? Then the whole argument was over. That's how I feel about this whole Justin Herbert thing. And it makes sense because they're the other team in LA too. But what do you think about, like, do you think that's still an argument that can be made, this whole Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow thing?
I think it can be simply because Joe Burrow didn't win the Super Bowl. I think if Joe Burrow wins that Super Bowl, that creates a lot of distance from it. But you got to remember, these guys are only in year 2 of this process. I think that they're going to be forever entangled and intertwined with each other just because they were a part of that same draft. The fact that Justin Herbert, and I remember going back the rookie season, and I was looking at both of these guys. I was like, all right, we either have to get Burrow or we got to get Herbert. Either way, I'm good with it. And I remembered Burrow got off to his fast start, and initially Herbert didn't start off the season, right? And then I remember Herbert getting in, I believe, against Tampa Bay. I think it was against Tom Brady and those guys, and he bought out. And I remember telling Zim, because Zim was like super high on Burrow, which I was high on Burrow too, but he just felt like there was just no one touching Burrow. And I remember telling him, I'm like, Zim, this dude is coming. Like, he's doing like the same stuff that Joe started off doing. He's doing it as well. And then I remember them being kind of neck and neck, and then Joe goes down. And Herbert continues to play that well, and then everybody kind of forgot about Burrow. So when the season started, a lot of people actually had Herbert over Burrow, with Burrow coming off of the injury and stuff like that. But I think that this is always going to be one where they're intertwined, because it's almost like the Tom Brady versus the Peyton Manning argument, because Justin Herbert is kind of like, well, not even Tom Brady. I probably would even liken it to like an Aaron Rodgers, just because he has that arm, right? So like, people are always going to like Herbert because when it comes to true skills, like, he has a bigger arm than Burrow. He's got more accuracy. Some people would say, depending on which section of the field that you're talking about. And so he's always going to get the praise from that standpoint. But I think what separates Burrow away from Herbert is just the processing, the ability to read, the IQ. And so as much as I would want it to be over, it's going to be a forever thing. Like, and who's to say, like, if Burrow even gets one ring, right? If Herbert gets a ring, like, it's going to be back to the same conversation. And so both of those guys are talented. But I don't think it's over, bro. I don't think it's over yet. Not yet.
The Chargers are not getting a ring. anytime soon. I'm sorry. I have no faith. I watched them fumble their opportunity to get to a playoff game because they was just they the Chargers, man. And people will be like, you a Browns fan. It's a big Nah, dog. Nah. It's just, I feel like it's going to be Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning all over again, except for Joe Burrow, much better than Eli Manning already. Let's hear.
They do remind me of the old Bengals, though. I ain't gonna lie. They do. The Chargers do remind me of the old Bengals for sure.
Oh, where they just do stuff that you're like, okay, yeah, that's how you go not make the playoffs. Like, I want to see. Yep. Is there a team? If the Chargers were the 1 seed in the AFC, you know they're gonna lose that game. Like after the bye, like that. Yeah. Hey, Chargers Twitter, come at me, man. I know y'all gonna be mad, but let's let Greeny hear. Let's hear this out.
A home field advantage at any point and overcomes that. 2, his own coach doesn't know you can punt. His own coach is not aware that on 4th down you were not obligated to go for it. You're talking about them not making the playoffs last year. The coach gave that game away the last week against the Raiders. That was one of the most astonishingly terrible coaching jobs I've seen in the NFL in a very long time. Herbert has overcome unimaginable obstacles, I think, to put up.
Okay, let's pause this right here. Like he's talking about Taylor, the coaching. Right? Yes, yeah. Like this is my thing too about Burrow. Like everybody talks about, yes, we do have the weapons and stuff like that. Zach, I think he took strides last year, but Zach is not this, mistake-free coach that's not taking those same risks and getting burnt by doing them. Like we've had a lot of choices that Zach Taylor has made over the years really bite us in the butt. So I hate when people talk about, oh, well, if he didn't have, average coaching, and I'm not going to say that Zach is average, but he's definitely had some average and below average moments for sure. So by no means is this guy like a Andy Reid or anything like that. And I hate when people bring that up because we don't have the best coaching either. And you got to remember, this guy just became a head coach and just started calling plays literally 2 seasons ago. So yeah, he can miss me with the whole coaching thing.
It's crazy how we do this sometimes, but like the Bengals literally had the 4th pick in the draft last year. Like everybody acts like the Bengals are like this, like, oh, how could you not lose with that support around them? We're like, bro, they had the 4th pick in the draft last year. Like that was not that long ago that the Bengals were seeing. Nobody thought they were going to be in 3rd place this year, and all of a sudden we get 12 months later, and people are, it's one thing if players develop, but now people are like, oh, well, it was obvious that Joe Burrow would be more successful in Cincinnati. Y'all literally told Joe Burrow to avoid Cincinnati because you thought they would be incompetent, right? And then you wanted them to go to places like the Chargers that you felt like were more competent. And now we're making the argument that, man, if Joe Burrow just had that elite Bengals coaching, if Justin Herbert had that elite Bengals coaching, boy, where would Justin Herbert be? It's just hilarious.
The same elite coaching, Quincy. Think about how the Super Bowl ended. When I saw us walking up in empty, I looked at Zim. I was like, bro, what is he thinking? What is he doing? Empty. And this guy is talking about, oh, he's not choosing to punt. Imagine being in the Super Bowl and calling some of those plays and making some of those decisions on that stage. Like that was, yeah, bro. That's all I'm going to say there.
Samaj JP ride.
Samaj JP ride. Wow. Okay.
All right, let's finish this video up.
Numbers in 2 seasons, Graziano, and I think he's ready to take that next step and be the MVP of the league.
Then great, let's see it. I think that would be a lot of fun, but he hasn't overcome them because he hasn't been to the playoffs yet. He's weathered it, right? But they haven't accomplished anything yet since he's been there. So he looks fantastic. I could watch Justin Herbert throw the deep ball all day. He converted like 6 4th downs in that game you're talking about. Wasn't on him that they didn't win it, but proof's in the pudding. Burrow was in the Super Bowl.
All right, fair enough. I can't argue with that. We'll come back to.
Wasn't on the quarterback.
Yeah. We'll end on that note. Ace, thank you for coming in, man. Let them know where to find you. AFC North Talk everywhere else. But where else can they find you at, man?
You guys can find me at New Stripe City, but you can also find me on Cincinnati. That is the network that me and Zim have started. We actually have some good interviews coming from over there. So definitely be sure to tap in on that. You'll start to see a lot of NFL Network guests on the show. So shout out to our producer, Ryan, who used to work for the NFL and definitely helps us out with that. So you can definitely find a lot of dope content on that area. And then you can also find me on Twitter at New Stripe City.
Wait a minute. Y'all got producers now? Oh, okay. I ain't know y'all was like that. You know what I mean? I saw the big time guest. I'm like, okay, Ace deep like that though. You know, he's like the Shams Karani of Bengals world. But I ain't know y'all was deep like that. Look at that, man. People doing great things in this space.
Hey, just trying to get like you, dog. You a whole Thanos by yourself out here on these streets with the production, with all of that. So we just luckily had the opportunity to come across one of these guys. We had a guy last year, but he kind of got burnt out. So we luckily fell into the place of being able to have him come out and help us out. And he's been a great addition to the show. So, yeah, we definitely appreciate Ryan and all his efforts for sure.
All right, man, if you want to produce this show, send your emails to whatever my email is on my Twitter, because sometimes I'll be needing help too. But y'all, thank y'all for watching this video. Appreciate everybody. Hope y'all watch the next one, man. Subscribe to Worst Take. It's his own channel now. Subscribe to AFC North Talk, and also, subscribe to my main channel as well. But y'all have a great day. Have a good night.